Hey guys, I'm Ivory and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a 2-day wear test on the Smashbox Studio Skin 24-Hour Hydrating Foundation. Oh my god, I said it all in one take. I thought I was going to say that like a million more times. I'm going to be showing you how it applies initially as well as checking in throughout the day to show you how it wears. For anyone that's new here, I have both oily and acne prone skin, so a lot of my wear tests are catered towards people with similar skin types. And if you find that this review is helpful, I will link in my description box a playlist of all the other foundations I have done a wear test on. Before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I post new videos every single week, and also be sure to follow me on my social media. Everything is _ivorypcherry. Alright, so for anyone new, I'm going to give a really quick breakdown of each of the days and how I like to do things here, because a lot of you may know that when I do wear tests, I don't do the exact same things every single day. So the first day, which is today, half my face I'm going to be using a primer, and then the other half I'm going to do nothing. And then also for half my face I'm using a brush, and then the other half I'm using a microfiber sponge. And then depending on the results of today, say primer wins, then the next day I'll prime my entire face. But also on the second day, before I apply my foundation, I'm going to put loose setting powder underneath before putting it on. Adding loose setting powder underneath is an oily girl hack. It will help prolong your oils from coming through. So I want to see if it'll affect the wear time of the foundation with powder underneath. And the second day is also the day that I show you what the foundation looks like in natural lighting. To save you a little bit of time, all of the timestamps for each of the days as well as my final review will be listed in my description box below. Okay, so as you can see, my makeup is already done. I did already film me applying the makeup, and it's about to turn into like a voiceover. I've never done a wear test where my makeup's already done and I'm kind of going backwards because I have to talk about what already happened. So let me know if you like this format. I feel like it's a little bit more efficient for me as well as easier to edit, and it also might help with the length of the video, but I won't know because I haven't edited it yet. But let me know your thoughts about me doing things this way. So on this side of my face, I use the L'Oreal Infallible Matte Lock Primer, and I put it all over one side of my face. Of course, with everything else on top of it right now, I can't really see a difference. So we're just gonna have to see over time if having the matte primer will help with the shine or the longevity of my foundation. And on the same side of the primer, I used a brush to apply the foundation. I used the Sigma Round Kabuki, which is the F82. I usually use the flat top Kabuki from Sigma, but I didn't know they had a round top, and I prefer round top Kabukis. So I just want to say I prefer this one over the F80, which was the flat one. And then on the other side of my face, I went in with a microfiber sponge. This one is from Juno & Co. This is primarily my go-to way to apply foundation. The shade I'm using is 3.18, which comes off a little bit dark, but when I add setting powder, it did lighten it up a little bit. For reference, in the Maybelline Dream Urban cover, I am in the shade 228 Soft Tan. And also in the Estee Lauder Double Wear, I go in between the shades Tawny and Cashew. So hopefully that gives you an idea of whether or not me and you are the same shade. The formula is supposed to be medium to full buildable coverage. It is oil-free, cruelty-free, vegan, and upon application is supposed to have a fresh, natural matte finish. A small note about this, Smashbox changed the name. So this used to say 15 hours, now it says 24 hours. So if you have the one that says 15 hours, this is the same thing. And another thing is they have changed the price. It was originally $42 and now I believe it is $36. If I'm wrong, I'll put it somewhere up in the screen, but I don't think I am. But maybe I am, I don't know. Maybe I should just say nothing. Okay, so comparing the first layer of the brush and the sponge, I felt like first layer wise, the sponge did a better job. They still were really good. I just felt like I had a little bit more coverage with the sponge. And as far as the finish, they say fresh, natural matte. I felt like it was a little bit more luminous than that, just a hair more. But of course, when I set my face, everything is matte. But just without setting, I felt like it was a little bit shinier than they claim. And because I felt like the sponge had more coverage on the first layer, on the second layer, I actually only had to apply second coverage in specific areas as opposed to applying a second layer everywhere. I really only focused it on my cheek area as well as just a little bit on my forehead. Whereas on the brush side, I had to add a second layer pretty much everywhere. But after 2 coats, I feel like the coverage is the same on both sides. I just felt like I probably had to use less product to achieve the same coverage with a sponge. But both applications will work just fine. As far as how it currently lays on my skin, I really like how it looks so far. The coverage is really good. It's not cakey or bunching really weird. It feels pretty lightweight. Sometimes on my acne where the skin is a lot thinner, foundation will make it look dry and enhance the texture of it, but it doesn't seem like that with this foundation. I feel like my nose is looking smooth. My T-zone area looks pretty nice. Nothing's patchy. So on a first impressions, I think so far it's off to a good start. It built up really nicely. It says medium to full. I thought it was nearly full even on the first layer. So just saying. And the finish without setting it is a little bit dewier, I would say, than a natural matte finish. It's somewhere in between natural matte and a little bit of glowy. It's like somewhere right in between that. But that is it for the first impression. So I'm going to check in a couple hours to show you how it is wearing. All right, so it is the 7-hour mark. And as far as my oils, where are they? After 7 hours of wear now, my oils are just coming through and it's like, it's just healthy looking. My skin looks impeccable, if I do say so myself. And I do say so myself. As far as the side with primer versus no primer, they look the same to me. I don't think it makes a difference, in this case at least. You'll know in a lot of my wear tests, I often get this crack right here from my foundation after a couple hours. I can see it slightly starting to form, but this is pretty mild compared to other foundations that I've seen. Because I even have foundations that I really like and it's good everywhere else except this crack. Like I will still see it. And the fact that it's so faint, that's amazing. The only place that I have lost a little bit of foundation is right here. That's because I walked my dogs and I wore a hat and there's foundation in the inside of my hat. I hate when I do that, but it was cold. You can see on the sides of my nose, nothing is collecting. And basically it looks pretty much the same as it did when I first applied it. The coverage is still good over my acne. The top layer hasn't faded away or anything, because that's kind of common to happen when you have like large acne like this one right here. I'm really happy with the way this is wearing so far, but around the 7 to 10 hour mark is where things can go downhill really fast. I've had plenty of foundations where even at 7 hours, I'm like, I think I can call it quits at this point. And then from 7 to 10 hours, it just makes a huge difference. So I'm gonna come in a couple more hours to give my final thoughts for day 1. All right, so it is now 10 hours later and this foundation's amazing. Even after 10 hours, I don't think I would blot. I'm perfectly fine with the way this is looking. My oils have mixed really nicely with this and it looks like healthy, a little bit glowy, but it's not like, it's not greasy. In the cracks you see like it's not collecting in there. There's no pools of oil and the foundation isn't collecting in there. The top of my nose is not splotchy. And even after 10 hours, that crack I get in my smile line, I said it was faint, but it's exactly the same even a couple hours later. So that's really amazing. I think in my T-zone and a little bit on my chin area, it's looking a little bit cracked. It's really slight, but even being a foot away from my mirror, it wasn't until I was like really inspecting it to see that it's cracking a little bit in my chin and T-zone area. As far as on my acne, it's still covering it pretty well. And even though I wouldn't normally blot, I will blot half my face just to show you the difference. These blotting sheets are from Amazon. I will link them in the description box below. I use them for every wear test and I always get at least one person asking me where I got them. So they're from Amazon. All right, so I have blotted this side of my face and you can see the difference is, it's not a big difference. And what's great is the blotting hasn't made my foundation like splotchy. Sometimes, you know, when you get these brown marks on your sheets, you're afraid that it picked up a lot of foundation and then it's going to be like missing patches. It does not look like that at all. Everything is still good, intact. I mean, obviously it's not going to be as perfect as when you first applied it, but it's pretty damn near close. As far as the side with primer versus no primer, I did blot right now. Oh, I should have showed you before. My bad, guys. But I did inspect it before I blotted. Having mattifying primer basically made no difference. So if you don't have a mattifying primer or primer in general, because this side has nothing under the foundation at all, you will be totally fine. You don't need it. And as far as using a brush or a sponge, they are both fine applicators for this foundation. The only difference is I felt like the Juno & Co microfiber sponge gave me the same amount of coverage but using less product. And for a high-end foundation like this one, maybe that's important because you know, like me, I use my high-end foundations sparingly because they're expensive. That's why I only save my high-end foundations for special occasions. So that concludes day 1, and the next time that you see me will be the start of day 2. All right, so it is now day 2, which means that I'm gonna be putting powder underneath my foundation. I'm gonna go in with my Coty Airspun, and I'm just gonna apply this all over the face using the powder puff. And I say this every time, but wear tests are my most watched videos, so I feel like I need to reiterate it every single time because it brings in new people. But the type of powder and the amount of powder you use does matter. Because if you use a really great powder, but you use too much of it, when you put foundation on top, it'll clump up underneath. So you'll get like weird texture underneath. And a very similar effect will happen if you use even like a little bit of powder, but the powder is not super finely milled. My favorite powders to use are the Coty Airspun. You can also use a pressed powder, that would work too. And I also really like using the Derma Blend loose setting powder. And because I felt like there was no difference between primer and no primer, I skipped primer today. I just went in with only the powder, and I'm gonna go ahead and add foundation like I normally would with my Juno & Co microfiber sponge. All right, so this is what the foundation looks like with powder underneath. I feel like it looks more or less the same as it did on the first day. I do want to note that the first day wasn't yesterday. I didn't do this wear test 2 days in a row, so I'll have to look back at the footage to verify that it looks basically the same. But from what I remember, the coverage is really good. I would say that this is full, and this is 2 coats. So what I like to do with foundation, especially if I want to get the most coverage, is I put down the first layer and I wait about 4 minutes before putting on the second layer. I noticed that if I put the second layer right after the first, I end up just moving around the first layer of foundation as opposed to letting the first layer dry down and letting it set and stay in place. And then I go in and apply a second layer. I noticed that the coverage is way better. So that's just a little tip from me to you. I'm gonna go ahead and apply the rest of my makeup on camera. I let you guys vote a while back when I do wear tests if you want to see the whole face done or if I can just skip me doing makeup and then come back with my makeup all done. Almost everyone voted that they still want to see me do my makeup, which is totally fine. I aim to please, so enjoy. All right, so this is my makeup all complete. Even with powder underneath, my foundation still looks really good. There's no super kicky areas, but the real test, of course, is how my foundation wears over time with powder underneath. So that's all I have for now. I'm gonna check in a couple more hours, and that check-in will be the one where I show you what the foundation looks like in natural lighting. So I will see you in a bit. All right, so it is now the 5-hour mark, and typically I would do this type of natural lighting outside, but hold on. As you can see, there's snow outside and it's really cold. So unfortunately, because of the weather, I'm gonna be doing this update inside instead. I hope you understand. Okay, thanks so much. So the first day, the middle check was a 7-hour one and this is a 5-hour one. And it looked really good at the 7-hour. So just like the first day and midday, it looked really good. Coverage is still there. There's no splotchy areas, nothing's patchy. Now that my oils have had time to mix with the foundation, it doesn't look overly greasy. I wouldn't touch up at this point. Nothing is rubbing off. It's all staying in place. I'm really loving everything about it so far. So this is it for this update. So the next one is going to be the final update of day 2, as well as the final review of this foundation. All right, it is now the end of day 2, and to save some time on this side of my face only, I went ahead and used blotting sheets. It is a little bit matter than this side, but even if I wasn't doing a wear test, I would be fine with this side. Like, I didn't need to touch up. I just wanted to touch up just to see how big the difference is. One thing that I noticed is on the side that I used blotting sheets, there's very little foundation and a lot of it stayed on my face. Like, none of it is uncovered. You know, a lot of the times foundation will rub off on my acne, but it's pretty much still there. It's not perfect like it was when it was fresh, but it's still pretty good coverage. It's not really breaking up on my nose at all, as well as on my chin. There's no serious wear on it. I feel like my T-zone is where it looks the worst, but when I say worst, I mean in comparison to everything else. It's like everything else is an A, but this one is like the lowest A. Like a 90% is still an A, but it's a lower A. Even though this is the worst, it's still good. It's just not as good as everywhere else. Everything is holding together really nicely. I don't see any cracking. There's no oil pools in like weird spots, like in the crevices of my nose. The foundation barely lifted off when I touched it up. And as far as powder underneath, I mean, it'll probably help if I wanted to wear this more than 12 hours, like it would make a difference then. But at this point, if you're gonna wear it for 10 hours like I do for each of my wear tests, whether you have powder underneath, primer underneath, no primer, I don't think it really matters. It's gonna look good no matter what. So based on my review, I think you already know I really like this foundation. The coverage is great, the wear time is great, the finish is really nice, and I think it caters to a bigger range of people because it's not just for oily skin. It has a little bit of luminosity to it. It's not dewy. It's more like a natural finish. So someone with drier skin might like this as well. And even though it's not a dead matte, when my oils mix in with it, it just gives off this really great sheen, very healthy, not overly greasy. It doesn't kick up over my acne, and the dry patches that I have over my acne, it's not bunching or looks crusty at all. So if you're interested in this foundation, first of all, so I was lucky enough to get this in my Ipsy bag. What I like to do with high-end foundations, because I don't want to be wasteful. You know, in drugstores, they don't let you just get a sample and then see if you like it. They only do that at like Sephora, Macy's, Nordstrom, that type of place. Go to a Sephora, ask for a sample, and then see if you like it. And if you don't have any type of reaction and it wears well on you, then go ahead afterwards and buy the full size. If it's in your budget, of course. So that is it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed and that this was helpful for you. And if it was, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and feel free to comment down below what foundation you would like me to try next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.